Okay, I apologise now. Firstly, I've kind of lost where I am in terms of updating you. I'm sorry, there's been lots going on. Secondly, it looks like I'm about to rob something. I'm not, it's just really cold. It's sub-zero cold. I've got to have the door open because I haven't got enough space to do what I need to do. And thirdly, I have been doing quite a bit. It doesn't really look like it, but I have. So I've been tidying up wiring. I've still got to sort out these two earths which need to connect to the head. They were originally on the core pack bracket, but I'm not happy with how that looks. It needs to be powder coated, I think, so I've taken it off, stripped it. The rocker cover was damaged during installation. I've got a new one, or a better one, to go in there, so in the process of doing that. I've been hiding all the wiring, as you can probably see. I say hiding, I'm just tidying it really. A few bits and pieces are now in that weren't, brackets and bits and bobs, and I've got most of the pipework done for the coolant, which is good. I think it looks quite tidy. I'm happy with that, how that is. I'll get it across, and then the cover clicks to the top of that, hides it out of the way anyway, so that's looking good. What I'm less keen on, this is the hose, which is part of the Z-Tech conversion kit you can get from Roos. Happy with the quality, but what I'm not happy with is how unbelievably close it runs to everything. There is some clearance, but it is tight. So the pipe work as is, it's not going to connect without putting things too tight for me. So I've got a joiner. I'm just going to sort that out now with another bit of hose, which I can do. I've got some hoses capable of taking the temperature, capable of taking the heat, and oil and everything else. So it'll be much better. I think I said before, it's tight down here. Let's use the throttle cable, which will be tucked over the top of the head like so. I've got to change that bracket, but that's going to be like that. I think that's, again, relatively tidy. But I thought I'd just show you a bit more of the size in here, how tight it is, everything. This looks better than it is down there, but it is a bit tight. I don't think you'd get the spanner actually on the crank pulley without dropping it down. Still got to do the clutch release cable. I've put the linkages back in. I've connected a lot of bits and pieces back up, such as the temperature gauge, etc. I just need to pop this inside some sleeving. The battery looks a mess because I haven't connected everything up. It's all just sort of hanging there. And there's a few more pipes and bits and pieces yet to do. For now, cable tied it through the inner wing. There's clearance, but it is tight. So what I really want is something to put it across at the bottom, lift it up and out of the way a bit here. There's no more holes in the inner wing. I don't really want to drill more holes in my inner wing, but yeah, I'll just try and work out what I'm going to do there. You can see the joiner. I'm not massively happy with it. I might figure something else to do with that, but for the moment it's connected. And it'll do the job. I might spin the clamps around perhaps or something, just to try and make it look a bit tidier. I'm not quite sure just yet. There isn't space for it to run underneath around the back, really. Maybe that might be a better option, but I don't know. Apparently this thing takes 7.9 litres. Ford antifreeze, the 50-50 mix. So usually they used to have a sticker on the bottle actually telling you that, I think. But the current stuff lasts 10 years, so that's always nice. Okay, I'm up to 6 litres so far. This stuff, I always use deionised water. Same stuff you put in your batteries rather than using stuff out the tap. The reason for that is because the stuff down here is hard water. It's got all kinds of stuff in it that ends up causing problems inside an engine. So I always use this, put the stuff in there, allow it to mix. I tend to put the antifreeze in first and then add this stuff after. I don't know why, but I just tend to do that. It seems to mix okay, so just waiting for that to do. I'll probably need to crank the engine over just to bring everything round. And it's obviously going to take a while just to lose any air and any airlocks that are in the system. So much joy in a little box. Now, these are just small helper springs with a little connector that goes underneath, as you can probably see. What it really means is that this is pretty much the last thing I need to get the car back on the deck after a leaky shock and a long wait for the shocks from gas. Basically, I placed an order with Ready Design at the beginning of November. Had an email to say it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks because I've got to build them. I said fine, it's gas this is. Got an email a couple of weeks later to say that the order had been cancelled, so I ended up having to reorder them on the 22nd or something similar. 22nd November this was, and then they hadn't arrived. Christmas came and went. So I contacted them a couple of times, eventually got hold of them via their Facebook page. They said, oh, we've just been behind on emails, came back to me and went, yes, they should be here by now. Very sorry about that. They were excellent at that point in getting the things sorted. So I contacted Gaz. Gaz got them built in basically a day. They landed with ready design in about a day, and they were there with me the next day. So a space of about 3 days, they landed with me. So that was incredibly quick. So very pleased that it was all resolved in the end. Used ready design before, no problem. So can I just imagine it must be a blip. But yeah, here we go. So let's build the shock up. What is nice is the shocks come in a nice box, inside which there are a few bits and pieces. So there's a C-spanner, it separates out the two so they don't get too bashed about, and you get the little adjuster knob, of course, to make it firmer or softer, effectively, depending on how you want it to ride. And also, I took this out earlier, as you can probably tell, a test graph that shows you how the shock's performing. I'd asked for these to be for road use rather than competition use, so if that makes a difference, you can see the force and displacement graph there. Maybe I should add at this point that the purpose of the helper springs are, on cars that are particularly low, or the spring's particularly short, the spring basically shakes out in the shock. So when the car's suspension is not under compression, i.e. it's up in the air, it means that the spring bangs about inside the shock. Same can happen if you left the ground for whatever reason, or in some cars if you corner particularly hard. So you get a helper spring, which is a small one like this, which is nothing quite like the same poundage as the spring that's on there. This is only about 40 pounds, this one, because the job will only be when it's in the air, just to hold the spring in place, and you get a little connector to join the two together. There you have it, one shock built up. Helper spring at the top, that's taking up the tension, spring is no longer rattling. You've got that, there's a little top, has the top of this helper spring, the bearing, and then the top here. I've seen on some of the forums people fitting the other way around with a bearing in the top. Not quite sure why. Perhaps if you know the answer to that question, tell me. But to me, it makes sense that this bit turns because you want the shock to be able to turn, and this bit's basically against a rubber bush, which is the top of the wing, just like here, underneath that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure why you would want that, but I'm sure someone will have an answer.